Good morning, everybody. On this Good Friday, I thought it would be important for us to be very reflective. I thought it would make sense for us to reflect on the final words that Jesus uttered. You know, a person's final words can often tell us a little bit about their state of mind. And I think that the final words of Jesus provide some significance to the things that Jesus wanted to impart by the way of wisdom to all of us. What I want to do is go through each of the seven and to give some short, very brief reflection on the significance of those words, those sayings, and to provide room for us to really reflect on it. The first one that he says is, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." When I hear that statement, the first thing that comes to mind is that Jesus spent a significant amount of time talking to us about forgiveness. Maybe it's because that was part of the mission for why he was sent to earth in the first place. But when Jesus told Peter that when someone sins against you, you have to forgive them 70 times 7 times, he was essentially letting Peter know that there really shouldn't be a limit to the level of forgiveness that we render one to another, because God, through Christ, forgave us first. When he says, "Father, forgive them," he is essentially living the embodiment of that teaching. He's forgiving the Roman soldiers for their part in his crucifixion. He's forgiving the people who were responsible for him being there because they chose Barabbas instead of him. He's forgiving the chief priest, the high chief priest, as well as all of the Pharisees and Sadducees who were involved in the plot to have him arrested in the first place. He's forgiving everybody. Father, forgive them. Saying number 2, "Today you will be with me in paradise." It's ironic that Jesus was crucified in between two other thieves, two other criminals who were actually deserving of their punishment. And the fact that the interaction between the three of them was such that one thief was chastising Jesus and telling him to get himself up off of the cross and save himself. Meanwhile, the other thief or the other criminal says, this man is innocent. I deserve what it is that I'm receiving, but this man is innocent. The fact is, Jesus turns to that criminal and says, "Today, truly I tell you, you will be with me in paradise," is again demonstrating the fact that Jesus sees him, recognizes the fact that this man also recognizes Jesus' divinity. And it's a build upon the previous saying where he is forgiving him of his sins. Saying number 3, "Behold your son, behold your mother." This is in the Gospel of John chapter 19. And I think it's particularly there because John, the disciple whom Jesus loved, was the one that was entrusted with the responsibility of caring for Jesus' mother, Mary. And to me, it's amazing how Jesus, even being in excruciating pain, despite being in the predicament that he is thinking about other people over his own pain. Jesus was showing that he was essentially offering his last will and testament. He was getting his affairs in order. He was setting his estate and letting his mother know that she would be taken care of by John and that John should view her as mother. It shows me the level of care and concern that Jesus has for us all. That despite the fact that we may think that our situation and circumstance is too big for Jesus, here is Jesus showing us that even when he was going through something, he was able to think of somebody else. My God, why have you forsaken me? The phrase that shows in the Bible is Eli, Eli, sabachthani. And it's a callback to Psalm 22, because David was trying to figure out why his God had forsaken him. And Jesus, in this moment, was feeling abandonment. That as his death was approaching, Jesus was experiencing a complete separation from God. And he also, I would imagine, felt the separation and abandonment of his disciples. Because where were they? Jesus had to go through this and travail through this by himself. And it was at that moment that he cries out to God, asking him, "Why have you forsaken me?" Have you felt forsaken by God at times? Have you felt as though God hadn't heard you? Jesus demonstrates that in his humanity, he felt this dereliction of responsibility from God for his own well-being. In John chapter 19, verse 28, Jesus says, "I thirst." At this point, Jesus would have been distressed. Jesus would have been dehydrated. He was given a drink of sour wine, which was symbolizing the need for the scriptures to be fulfilled through him. And in John chapter 19, verse 28, I would imagine that John sees Jesus, the anointed Messiah, as the perfect example of a true king. A king that was persecuted by his enemies, not because of anything that he did, but because he was perfect. And Jesus, it's not lost on me the fact that here was Jesus, the one who said he was the living water, the one that if we drank of, we would never thirst again. But here was Jesus on the cross, thirsting for water. I would imagine it's almost as if he emptied himself completely for our refreshment at his own expense. And then we get to the point in John chapter 19 where Jesus essentially says, "It is finished." Accomplishing a goal, coming to the end of a task, finishing the race. When Jesus says it is finished, I don't view it as a negative, I view it as triumph. Here was Jesus, his earthly life is over, his death now opens up the darkest places of this world to receive the reconciling love of God. He now becomes the bridge between us and God. That chasm that had opened up between us and God, that created that eternal separation, has now been closed. Jesus has now bridged the divide. And he says it is finished. And I can just revel in the fact that Jesus came to do something. He saw it and he conquered it. He overcame anything that the enemy tried to stop him from doing. Even when the enemy tried to prevent him from fixing his face on Calvary's cross, he did it. It is finished. Finally, Jesus says this, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." This is in Luke chapter 23, verse 46. I think Jesus was relieved that he was now going to be reunited with God. He's joining his heavenly Father as he journeys from death to resurrection. And in the midst of all of this agony, in the midst of all of this devastation and degradation, it might have seemed like a failure to the people that were watching. But what Jesus was saying here is that he trusted God. He trusted God with the outcome. He trusted God with what was coming next. And he was commending his spirit into the hands of God. on this Good Friday, are we capable of commending our spirit into the hand of God? I hope that these 7 last sayings were helpful for you. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Focuses on forgiveness. Today, you will be with me in paradise is a build on forgiveness and leads to the salvation of one of the criminals. Behold your son, behold your mother is highlighting relationship and the fact that Jesus got his affairs in order. My God, why have you forsaken me? It represents abandonment that all of us have felt at some point in time in our lives. I thirst is the distress that Jesus was under. It is finished is the triumph of Jesus. And finally, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. That is the reunion of Jesus with the Father. On this Good Friday, reflect on these things. 7 is the number of completion, and Jesus completes the mission on this Good Friday. You guys take care, be blessed, and we hope to see you on Easter Sunday.